Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some massive news for the Nebraska Cornhuskers as Grant Brix, four-star offensive tackle from the state of Iowa, commits to Matt Rhule and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. This is a guy that we've talked about throughout the summer, kind of tracking, in a massive win for Matt Rhule. And what stands out most is these are the kind of guys that Matt Rhule wants to bring in to bring Nebraska back to where it belongs. You take a look at the identity that Matt Rhule wants this football team to have. It's physical up front. It's the ability to run the football. Bringing in a guy like Grant Brix kind of shows the direction this program is going under Matt Rhule. I even got my Nebraska quarter zip on to celebrate the commitment. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys, and obviously a special shout out to the Nebraska fans. This is a program I love talking about. You guys can tell I'm fired up about this one. But more importantly, the amount of support the Nebraska fans consistently show the boys, it really does mean a lot. Through the highs, the lows, you guys always rock with the fellas. Can't thank you guys enough. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. More importantly, it's going to be a busy next couple of weeks for Nebraska as the transfer portal opens up. We'll be updating you guys with all the roster moves for Nebraska. Dill, I'm going to kick it to you. Grant Brix heading to Lincoln. How we feeling?
Yep, battles that got to be won. They go up with an Oklahoma, you got to win a couple of them. Go up with Notre Dame for a Carter Nelson, got to win a couple of them. So this is exactly what Matt Rhule wants to or has to start doing to bring this Nebraska program back to where it belongs. And he really shouldn't have a shortage of resources in which to go fight these other big boys because Nebraska backs this football team. And it is good to see them get this win early on, especially before the foundation's been built. And we know that Matt Rhule is going to need to probably start to show it on the field as he gets deeper into this program. But this is like the type of win that you hope starts coming more frequently once that happens.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think Carter Nelson, Grant Brix, this kind of signifies what Nebraska is selling these kids coming out of high school. And as much as we talked about the transfer portal and Nebraska potentially making some additions through the portal, which no doubt they'll do, this is how Matt Rhule wants to build this program. He wants to get guys out of the high school level, get them developed, and have them be all Big Ten, all-American caliber players come year 3, year 4, year 5. This is a slow build for Matt Rhule. He's talked about it a lot. I think Grant Brix kind of clearly as a prospect too, kind of a more raw prospect that you got to put some weight on. But this is a dude that he's a top 100 prospect for a reason. I mean, the upside for Grant Brix is massive. Dylan, one other thing that I feel like we got to talk about more, and obviously you can talk about the turnovers and the disappointing November Nebraska had. One positive that you saw that I think gets kind of overshadowed is the development of that offensive line that took place from week 1 to week 12. Like, that group is not where it needs to be, but it unequivocally got better from week 1 to week 12. And you see the development on the offensive line, something, again, during Scott Frost's tenure, you just didn't happen. Like, that offensive line just never seemed to get the most out of the talent. You're seeing Matt Rhule kind of have some success doing that, and adding Grant Brix to the fold, I mean, certainly just going to help this unit.
And frankly, if you're going to try to build good offensive lines, I don't think there's any other way than doing it through high school recruiting and developing guys. Because we've been talking about these teams like in Arkansas that needs to go hammer the portal for offensive linemen, and you don't really have much of a pipeline coming up through it. It's really, really hard to find enough guys to build up a good offensive line. There's just everybody wants good offensive linemen. So if you're the one hunting in the portal for like 2 or 3 of them, it's just really, really hard to land it. Unless you're like maybe a Georgia or a Michigan where you're
even at that point, like the top offensive linemen, they're either going to the NFL draft or staying where they're at. For a running back or a wide receiver, there's much more talent in the transfer portal. The teams that have missed on the offensive line classes on the high school recruiting trail are the same teams that are trying to kind of, I don't mean to say get the scraps, but try to pick up some offensive linemen in the transfer portal. And quite frankly, the talent pool of offensive linemen is not there. So the supply is low and the quantity of teams that want to get offensive tackles is certainly high. Want to get into Grant Brix as a prospect really quick. This is a guy that we'll turn on the film and get into. So exciting in terms of, and he kind of embodies what Nebraska is kind of selling, a developmental guy who is 6'6", 280, got to put some weight on the frame. But what you can't teach is the frame that he has, the size that he has, and the athleticism. And these are my favorite type of offensive linemen coming from the high school ranks. Because, Dale, you see a lot of offensive linemen who come in at 320 pounds, and the weight isn't necessarily good. Grant Brix is going to get on campus, put on weight the right way, can maintain that athleticism. And again, you're looking at a guy that can play on the inside, can play the tackle spot, and has all Big Ten caliber written all over him here.
I mean, another thing I'll add is you can't teach athleticism at the end of the day. So if you're a big guy coming out of high school and you dominated with your size only, you can't really be trained to be a mover. I mean, you see tons of guys who are big in college or great in high school, and they don't have that athleticism. Okay, it showed in high school you're big enough to dominate, but if you can't move, you can't play big-time college football anymore. So you look at a guy like Grant Brix, you can put weight on, but you can't fundamentally change how good of an athlete a guy is.
And he is, I mean, you're going to see it right here. I've watched plenty of Grant Brix over the last couple months, and this is probably one of my favorite reps. Like, you're going to see a guy that really explosive, and you know he has the power in his hands. Look at the athleticism. Like, go to the second level, go chase down a linebacker, put him in the dirt. Like, he plays with that nasty. You see him work to the second level and kind of display that athleticism. There you see him just road grading. And there's not a lot of boxes that Grant Brix doesn't necessarily check. Again, blocking multiple guys on that play. You take a look at this Nebraska class in 2024, and you look up, and Dill, you noted it best. Top 25 class in the country. Some massive wins on the recruiting trail, right? Carter Nelson, you go toe-to-toe with Georgia and Notre Dame, and you win that commitment. You go toe-to-toe with Oklahoma for Grant Brix, you win that one. Scrolling down, I mean, Preston Tuamawa, I mean, you go to toe-to-toe with Oregon there, Ja'Cory Barney beating out Miami, Daniel Kalen obviously flipping him from Missouri. You're starting to see the players from the high school ranks buy into what Matt Rhule is saying. And the last thing I want to talk about is you got one more target in this 2024 class, a very similar player to Grant Brix, Alexander Rugerl from Bishop Gorman, obviously a high school, the number one team in the high school rankings right now. Very similar prospect to Grant Brix, right? 6'6", 286, phenomenal athlete. Got to put some weight on the frame. These are the kind of guys Matt Rhule wants to get. Dill, you know it best. How has Matt Rhule succeeded at Temple and Baylor from player development? And you're getting guys who are raw but have high potential. Those are the exact guys Matt Rhule wants in this locker room right now.
And you keep them in the program and you get them for 3-4 years. And I think you're right. Again, I think every team at the end of the day should be trying to do that. I think you see some teams really going to the portal hard and saying, well, we'll recruit a couple high schoolers and then we'll just aggressively hit the portal. I think if you're going to hit that like peak, that Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, some of those programs that like really have now put it together for a few years, I think you need to be able to have a nucleus of guys out of the high school ranks. And you see, I got to think Matt Rhule knows that in high school recruiting, it should only go up from here, frankly, in my
Matt Rhule, 100% agree. I think the high school recruiting is just going to get better. And two, like you've seen evidence of the teams that want to kind of take the quick money. I don't know if that's the best term, but kind of the quick players and leave culture in the dust, right? USC with Lincoln Riley, and they had a kind of a flash in the pan season with Caleb Williams. What happened year two? They go 7-5. You take a look at Colorado, and we're still like to be determined, but they kind of had a flashy little transfer portal. They won a few games early. They finished with a losing record. So I think Matt Rhule didn't go that aggressive in the transfer portal. I'm not saying ignore the transfer portal at all, but you know Matt Rhule wants to get most of his players from the high school ranks, get them in, get them developed, and by year 3, 4, and 5, those are the contributors that you're going to have on this team. Matt Rhule doing it the right way, the slow way, and I think it only gets better from here. Fellas are fired up. Grant Brix heading to Lincoln, Nebraska. Again, Nebraska fans, appreciate you guys always rocking with the boys. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.